Welcome to Offbeat Frontiers, presented by KMFA Classical 89.5 Austin. Offbeat Frontiers brings you conversations with creators pushing the boundaries of the new music and indie classical art scene of Austin, Texas. I'm your host, Jess Griggs. We're here today at Batch Craft Beer and Kolaches off of Manor Road to talk with Zach Matteson and Karl Mitze of the Invoke String Quartet. We talk about everything from their place within the classical music world to personal programming philosophies and everything in between. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Yeah, what if repertoire is the illusion of choice? Do you think you're actually making choices within the repertoire?
I love that.
Actually,
that's what being about like a composer. This is something that I think about, like being composer.
Yeah.
Or you and having you and Nick and working with composers a lot, doing new music. You're like, I know what people like. It's not in the score. Beethoven didn't write.
Yeah.
That like. I think you're overthinking it. I'm pretty sure he got a beer with his friends after. He's like, oh, I messed that one up.
Yeah, they're just people.
Like, they're just people.
Yeah.
And, like, the music is
I'm
just...
so here for that. That conversation is so vital because we put these like, you know, great composers. We just put them on these pedestals. And I'm like, why are we worshiping these? Like, these people are around us now. The creators now that, you know, they might be your friends, you know, 100 years from now. And they're like, oh, of course, the works of such and such are infallible, you know? It's like,
Nick Montopoli is really specific with his... with his dynamic marking.
That's the best about writing for a group that's like your buds, is sort of like when you make a tempo marking or you write something, you just develop shorthand that's illegible to other people. So like good friends of ours, the Westerlies, they sell their scores online, you know, and it's really cool. There's our brass quartet, and there's a lot of young brass groups trying to play their stuff now, so they make it available. And I'm like, oh man, we'd have to clean these scores up so much.
This is clean our scores.
This is different. This isn't what we play at all.
Yeah.
This is like not even.
Yeah. Can you guys recap the 2023-2024 season of Invoke?
Wow.
Oh my God. The biggest thing that happened was in October we released our brand new album, with Sona Luminous. It's called Evolve and Travel, which is also the title track that Karl composed. And it's all original work on that album. I think our second album was all original work. That came out October 27th. After that, our biggest kind of tour that we did was to Virginia Tech. We did a huge residency out there at Virginia Tech. Yeah, big concert at the Moss Arts Center. Did several sensory-friendly concerts and worked with like students in the composition department.
Started a new concert series.
Yeah, that's the biggest
Under
one.
the Hood. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Happens here, actually.
Happens here at Batch.
Yeah, and that's started in April of 2024, and it's basically our chance to experiment with new repertoire on our end, and then also work with a singer-songwriter, composer, musician of Austin, showcasing what they're up to, and also then arranging songs of theirs for Invoke and them.
So just talking about Invoke in general, I'm kind of interested to know how your creative process works as a group and what your internal structure looks like.
Oh man, well I think it really depends on the project. So there's a few different, you know, there's several different offerings we have. Obviously we have our all kind of mostly originals concert that we put on, and that sort of repertoire is sort of constantly being turned and created at all times, given just different schedules between Nick and I usually with the writing. But the one thing that's really, I think one of my favorite things we do is when we score films, which we do a lot of rescoring of films. We have 3 now, and we're hopefully going to do a 4th soon. That process is super collaborative and involves just this really cool like group improv sort of thing that we've kind of become known for. Where we'll put the movie on and sort of sit back in a room, you know, with a bunch of instruments around us and just hit the record button and just whatever comes out during the movie comes out, and then we'll each individually go back and review that. And I think and then like come together with notes about what we think is cool, and then eventually usually Nick or I will start transcribing. In the case of the movie, Zach and Jeff also do transcribing too and fleshing out of parts. But I think that's a good encapsulation of how Invoke works.
Okay.
It's sort of just like at any given point, applying the group's strength together as best we can, and after 10 years we're getting pretty good at kind of knowing who to throw things to or where to push the balance, but yeah, everyone has different obviously different strengths to bring to the table. So
is that how you plan out a season as well, kind of in that collaborative way?
For the last 4 or 5 years, we've been trying to move in the direction of our main show is the Invoke originals. In addition to the Invoke set, we're going to be doing a classical Haydn inspired set, kind of going back to our string quartet roots, playing a Haydn string quartet. We're going to write a response to the Haydn string quartet, kind of in the process that Karl described. Who knows?
So we haven't even talked about this yet. But this is sort of
it's happening.
Yeah, this is the
and then pieces that might have been inspired by folk music, because specifically the Haydn Opus 20 No. 2 has the third movement, which is very folksy and hurdy-gurdy. So kind of okay, what are other pieces that maybe use that inspiration? And then another one we're calling American Voices, which is going to be Scott Joplin, Jesse Montgomery, Florence Price. Karl has an amazing arrangement of the First Symphony of Florence Price that we're going to be doing. William Grant Still, a couple Invoke originals, a very specific American music in the Western tradition from the 1860s to now.
Yeah. How do you find yourselves balancing the Invoke originals versus some of the more repertoire pieces?
That's something that we've gone back and forth on over the years, almost year to year sometimes. Yeah. It's kind of so we had a pretty good run of I don't want to say getting away with, but kind of having a lot of people take a chance on just who we are as Invoke for a long time. And then we started seeing that there was sort of this need and this ask, and certain, like Zach was saying, certain communities that we were touring to for other maybe other voices or other perspectives through what we're doing, and they would be more interested in us if we had that. So this year, for instance, the development of these programs is kind of oh, well, we get down with that too, so why don't we also now carry once again some more diverse programs as far as what we're putting on it. So we had sort of gone from that maybe 5 or 6 years ago, narrowed it down to some very simple 1 or 2 programs, and then this year I think we're feeling comfortable kind of expanding it back out again. So it's sort of an ebb and flow. And of course we're always listening to our management and presenters and audiences, and what kind of feedback we're getting from oh, well, these people want to have you out, but they're interested in this, but then they went with this other group, and well, why did they do that? So it's part of that, and it's not even catering, to the man or something, but it's kind of it's just and I view it as we get to do more music that's super fun and interesting.
And keep our chops up.
Yeah, it's good to play a variety and not just stuff you write. So that's that's good.
I think part of that is that consideration. It's this we'll share our musical interests, and hopefully you'll maybe bring us back later and experience more of all of Invoke.
Right.
The essence of Invoke.
The essence of
Yeah. Quote, one pretty important radio guy described y'all as, quote, not classical, but not classical. I'm going to present 2 questions, and you can go down to either one.
Do they have double negatives in them, or?
I wish. That'd be hip. Do you feel like that still describes Invoke? Not classical, but not classical. Or how much of that aesthetic/genre was planned by y'all?
Wow, yeah. I think that to answer the second part, a lot of it was chance.
Yeah.
But then, that's kind of how these things go, right? The chance kind of bred intention. So I think, that sounded really, pretentious, but, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
sort of the happenstance of us finding each other and having the interests we had led to us discovering intention along the way. So I'd say that's Alvin, do you want to answer?
Second that. Does that still apply to us? It's not classical. I think it does. Just because when we first started out, I think we're very interested in the Punch Brothers and what they were doing.
Yeah.
Being bluegrass players, looking to some classical world things, like they play the Passapide from the Bergamasque Suite by Debussy, and it's like, oh wow, that sounds so cool as a bluegrass quintet playing a thing. So can we be like a string quartet being classical and try to like play something bluegrass in that way? We were at a concert last week or 2 weeks ago, and someone came up, they're like, like they said exactly that. They're like, Punch Brothers like played some classical music, and you guys are like the opposite, right? You guys are like classical playing some bluegrass music. It's like, yes. If that was the goal, we got it. And I still think we're young enough where most of our whole lives were classical music.
Yeah.
So it's hard for that to not seep in.
At least in training. And also when I think about when it was David Trebnick from SiriusXM, when David said that quote to us, we were in like, he was gracious enough to give us like a meeting just because we reached out in DC once, and we're in this boardroom with him, and he had listened to our CD and was like intrigued. And when he said that, we've gotten older and more mature, I've realized I think when he said it's not classical, you could take what is that classical part? What did he mean by that? And I think what it probably translates to is like that we take great like technical care in the craft in a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's not that like other genres don't do that, but I mean from a stance of like a classical player, I think that there's this sort of intention that's constantly bred into us and like bashed into us, where it's like, oh, you have to be careful about this and you have to pay attention to this. And so I don't know, maybe that's a huge compliment, because to me that meant like, oh, we're doing things in another genre, but we're like applying all this stuff that we've worked so hard on throughout our lives to that kind of mixed genre field. And we're definitely not the first people that have done that by any means. I mean, look at like Turtle Island and Bella Fleck and all these inspirations of ours. So that's flattering in that way. To get that from David was really cool, especially at that age, because we sure as hell weren't the most technically put together group at that point yet. We hadn't really won any competitions yet or anything.
How do you put your personhood out there when you have that, I don't want to say divide, but like programmatically you have your original work, which can be very like, I wrote this about X, and then I'm doing this repertoire work. You're just talking about Haydn. How do you find yourself in more rep pieces?
It kind of changes, I think, from piece to piece. So the Haydn, for instance, that has a special place now in our hearts, because it was one of the first more serious quartets that we played as a group, and we played it at a point in our like playing careers as an ensemble where we were like learning a lot and going through kind of a transformative moment. We were at like St. Lawrence String Quartet chamber music seminar in Stanford, California, working on Haydn Opus 20 No. 2 with St. Lawrence and like other coaches there, and with a lot of our peers, some of whom are in Austin now with us, and coming back to it now, that has all this other greater meaning. So it is sort of so intrinsically us. And that does inspire me, because when we look at some of these other pieces, like we haven't done Maple Leaf Rag yet, for instance. We've never performed that. I have no personal connection to it yet. But let's see, because like we're gonna play it, we're gonna rehearse it, we're gonna learn it, and then the moment it sees audience light, it takes on new meaning and it becomes more us. So it's really hard to say. For the new pieces, they're just little fledglings. So I don't know. I don't know what sort of beautiful bird they'll grow into. TBD.
I feel like part of the invokification of anything that we're playing is it's just like, I think I used to be like, how does this connect? And what's the story behind it? And there is going to be a story, but at the same time, just by working on it with people that and like we all were very distinct players, we're just going to bring our own like stank to it.
It's got a real dink kind of.
So I think no matter what, like no one's going to play it like us. Then to pair it with an Invoke piece that is in definite reference to the Haydn, like then people will like understand like, oh, they play it like this. Here's what they play the Haydn like, and here's what they really think about it.
Maybe.
So y'all found yourselves at UT studying with Moreau.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people can read about that in your bio. Go to your website. But I'm really interested in why you decided to stay here in Austin after you're done with UT.
For me, a lot of what has kept me wanting to stay here is it's not the weather, it's not the politics, it's like the community and it's like the vibe of Austin, especially when it comes to like the Austin. I don't want to say classical music scene, but like the music scene in general. Like the community of the music scene is so tight, and it's insular in a certain way, but it's also just very welcoming across the board. And I think that you can get lost in it, and you can't get lost in it. If you're in a city like New York or Philadelphia or Boston, it's not that those cities are super cutthroat. If you're like, you know, in the community and you have friends, they can be though. And I think that Austin is just like there's room for everything in a certain way. And we've just found, specifically in the string community, like some other string players, just the best sort of tight-knit group of people that you can find anywhere.
Yeah.
And people that you would be happy to play with as well as like hang out with. And that's pretty rare, you know, like you can find that in any city, I'd imagine, but you know, this is like our city.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like
absolutely.
the people that we love are here. So to me, the community, that's a big thing. And that's been pretty special.
Kind of transitioning into maybe some more like specific questions about recent projects.
Yeah.
I know that you just scored a movie. Or not scored, but you just recorded for a movie. You want to talk about that project?
Oh my
a little bit and
gosh.
how that?
That's
What can we say about
part of
that?
Yeah. Can you give us a teaser? Can
Yeah.
you say anything?
I think we can.
We can now.
Well, it's like leads into the broader Austin community of
Yeah.
things. Like you're surrounded by like music greats in that you wouldn't expect. But so Graham Reynolds is an amazing composer, runs Golden Hornet, another great organization in town. But he also has like a really close relationship with Richard Linklater. So the most recent film, Hitman, featuring Glenn Powell, and also Austinite, which I didn't know this. Like a year and a half ago, Graham sometimes has us into the studios to like flesh out like string parts for projects that he's working on, or maybe like contribute to some samples, like make some weird noises and things like that. So I think he just like threw down some like, I think as he's like, I'm doing this like movie project, I don't know what's going to happen with it. Here's like I'm experimenting with some like music inspired by Schubert. I kind of wanted to go more classical, so here's this piece, like let's play it once and then we'll improvise on it, you know. And you don't really think about it because you're like, when you're working with Graham, he has so many cool projects happening, and you're always like doing a little project, like a little recording for that, a little recording for this, and then like, he knows. And then like 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out with Graham, and he's like, "Oh yeah, and like Hitman's coming out in like 2 weeks, and you guys are on the soundtrack."
I learned about it on Instagram.
That's how I heard about
I
it.
didn't know because they didn't tell us what the movie was. So we're just like sitting there recording this thing, and that's Graham. That's how love him. That's how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that,
But now we're on the credits of a movie and like getting texts from like random family members. And,
yeah.
I saw your name.
They're staying for the credits to see this role. It's like this
so
is
cool.
Long and short of it, it was bizarre. I just like saw a picture of the credits and my name, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Because I'd been seeing the billboards over the Alamo for this movie. I was like, "Oh, this all is coming together
It's
now.
all coming
This is
back,
all
yeah.
coming together. Okay, that's what this is."
Can you tell us what Under the Hood is and how it, like, what the genesis of that particular, like, presentation series was?
Zach, you want to talk about this? Was your kind of your baby? I think this was sort of Zach's baby in a certain way, because this was. I remember our meeting about it last year, right? We were at Jeff's house, and you were like,
Oh yeah.
"Yeah, this was kind of." I think you sort of kicked off the whole conversation. We had this goal, sort of. We've been talking about this goal of getting our foot in the door a little bit more on, because we live this sort of dual life as like, we're a quartet, we're a band, we play concert halls, we play small stages in Austin, and we're like, well, we want to be doing more of this band-like stuff.
Yeah.
How can we do that? And we're like, well, you know, there's a better way than maybe to connect with people in our community right now, because Austin's sort of this awesome like incubating ground for all these cool projects and all these really cool people that are around. And we're like, well, you know, what we love collaborating. And that's where Zach came in. Zach presented this idea. Yeah.
And then I think I saw there was like the other classical music showcase. I forget what it was called.
At South by, right?
At South by.
Yeah.
Caroline Shaw was there. It was like there's this other amazing quartet in UK called Volvo Voce that came and played, but they played on like every set because they had like talked to all the people and like figured out like an easy way for them to like either arrange a thing or do a thing. Just like appeared, and then they also brought like a UK beatboxing group up to play with them. So it's like, wow, this is like such a cool like. I want to do that. Like I want to be, and we have all the skills. We've done, you know, all the recording work with like Graham. We
don't arrange.
Carl and Nick are like insane arrangers and like great, insane. Or like that's like a huge part of what they do.
Yeah.
And and we have all these friends. So like why don't we just like keep it simple? We did the live streaming thing. We've always wanted to do something live on a frequent basis. Oh, and we have to like kind of workshop all these pieces that we're going to be playing in the next season. So why don't we just like do a piecemeal, all the little like get together one or two pieces that we're playing, maybe throw an original on there, and invite the other group up or singer-songwriter up. They'll play a few, and then we'll do like 3 to 4 arrangements of theirs. And so I feel like Batch was on the mind because friends of ours have played here before. Oh, there's a classical jam every Monday night, and Gabriel, shout out to Gabriel Litt, who runs the events here at Batch.
Huge supporter.
I also is like very interested in building a community of like the classical community in Austin. This like weird indie kind of like what Here Be Monsters is doing all the time. And I think it's like it's bubbling up, and Gabriel's a big part of that. So he's letting us basically come in and steal the stage for an hour and just trying to do like the third Monday nights. Keep it consistent so people kind of get in a rhythm of like showing up. And I'm also seeing so much like amazing collaborations, like Hunter Kruger and Middle Satchery. Every time I go to one of their shows, it's like, who is this band that I've never heard of that are absolutely slaying right now? It's crazy. And like the curatorship that Hunter's bringing, and also like he did a hole in the wall residency, and like the second one was just like an alt classical night, and I was like, that's such a cool idea, and you're bringing together all these different groups of people into one thing. Like we should do that too, get inspired from that. Here Be Monsters, bringing together all of the classical music groups in Austin to do like a weird classical thing and showcase what Austin's all about. There's a lot of people in town that are doing cool stuff, so I think I wanted us to be a part of it in our own Invoke way.
Yeah. At one point, we were involved with Karl and Matt Bohaney's Rebel Radio project, and I remember feeling like when that was taking off, and we were like the house band, and how cool that was to experience. And when that kind of, you know, when its time came, and we sort of moved on from that, and that whatever happened there happened, we basically were like, I remember really feeling this void. I was like, that would be cool if we had something like that. Yeah. And I think we're kind of like, I don't know, we're kind of like, we're trying to step into the big voice shoes and be like, okay, it's time that we produce something. We've been here about, you know, we've been together 10 years. We've been in Austin about, 7 or 8 years. At a certain point, it's like, we can use our name to help elevate other people in the community. And in exchange, help ourselves out at the same time. Have a great time and play with cool people. I mean, you can't ask for much more, right?
Yeah.
Well,
looking ahead for Invoke for the 2024-2025 season, I have to do a little KMFA shout out. I know you're working with Clarice Assad, which was one of our former composers in residence. Can you talk a little bit about what's coming up with that collaboration and anything else coming up in that, if you can? A little teaser.
Well, right now we're looking to workshop some stuff with her maybe this summer, but definitely early fall. And we're looking at some dates in like 2025.
Yeah, that's
like fall of 2025. Clarice is just incredible. And so it's turning into this just kind of like grab bag of just like our favorite things.
Like a jukebox kind of style
show.
So we're all sort of choosing songs that are inspiring to us. And having, I think, Clarice as like kind of, now we're like this 5-person band. and Clarice is so multi-talented. She does everything we can do and more, obviously. So having just like another voice, literally, and the piano at our disposal, and having us at her disposal, that's going to be cool.
Yeah.
So like we're looking at some Beach Boys, some Beatles,
Bach,
some originals, Bach Ravel. Yeah. So it's still formulating. It's in the embryonic stage, but it's getting there. Pupa stage.
Love that.
What else is happening?
Brandon Ridenauer, we have a big collab with him that we're doing right now. He's a trumpet faculty in New York and formerly Canadian brass. He's just crazy.
American Brass Quintet.
Crazy player.
Yeah.
Another like crossover group called Founders.
Right,
Okay.
Founders.
And that's definitely more solid because he wrote a piece for us. We've arranged a bunch of pieces of ours to include him, and then we played like also Beatles,
Yeah.
some Vivaldi. We're gonna do Beethoven again.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome stable.
Hypothetically,
Yeah.
Daniel Swayze will hear this interview. And then,
Shout out, Dan.
shout out to Swayze.
We have almost a full another album ready to record, so starting to, that process is always a blurry 3-year period of some sort.
We're now officially recording Academy members.
We are.
So
We did. We
we're gonna
just
be
heard
part
that.
of
Yeah.
the new class.
New class.
So we get to
recording
vote in
academy.
the Grammys.
Oh.
Right? Who knew? There you go.
That's wild.
So
that's
hit us up, Grammy people, if you have an album coming up.
We'll at them on Instagram.
Yeah, sure. Please do.
Vote for it. And looking forward to doing more Under the Hood.
Yeah, the End of the Hoods are all booked out pretty much until
Almost like through November.
Yeah.
But we're looking to get December in there. Daniel Fears August 26th. Maybe I haven't announced. Felt Out is going to be September, and then a great electronic duo, and then probably Hunter Kruger from Middle Satchery in October.
Okay.
So we'll fill out November, December, and then maybe the spring too, and make it a full like this season at Under the Hood.
That'd be hip.
I got to find another
Yeah.
junky car to take a picture of.
Yeah, Zach did all the marketing on Instagram for this. If you haven't seen the Instagram post, it's basically like just the inside of a beat down car and then just superimposed images of all the artists and us. It's great. It's great.
Is there anything I missed or anything that you want to share about Invoke?
No, come out to Under the Hood. I mean, we, Zach and the rest of us have done a lot of work to put these on, and we're just super excited. And if you want to support local bands, local artists, please come out and have a beer and hang out with us.
Yeah. And where can the good people of the interwebs find you?
Invokesound.com or Instagram is our probably most used social media website. Invoke.sound. And then our music's on Spotify, Apple Music. I think it's on Tidal, but it might be on Tidal.
Cool.
Check it out.
Awesome.
Truth Social. Hard cut.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Offbeat Frontiers presented by KMFA 89.5. If you want to support local music in Austin, please give us a like and a subscribe. And once again, thank you so much. Awesome.
Thanks, Jess.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this was
Appreciate
awesome.
it.
Yeah, this was super fun.